Hello viewers from wherever you are watching us around the world. A very warm good afternoon from our studios here on Taraba Avenue. My name is Aliu Sese. Here to bring you the live broadcast of the nomination for the upcoming parliamentary election. As we understand, the process started today. This morning, the ANRD, together with the All People's Party and APRC, as we speak, is currently at the IEC regional offices at KM and in the West Coast region. We will bring you live broadcast of all the nominations starting from today to next Friday. And then with me in the studio is Mr. Mboch. Mr. Mboch, quite interesting process has started today with the nomination for the upcoming parliamentary election. How important is this process for you?
The presidential election was discovered and how and the very least how President Barrow, how popular he is. So perhaps this is the test for how popular he is.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mboch. I understand my colleague Yaya Jawo is currently on standby at the IEC regional office at the Kanifing municipality. Yaya, if you can get me what is happening from where you are right now.
Not to use our APRC and for this municipality, we have only two candidates.
We understand right now that's exactly what is happening.
Whoever we found within on our
on Taraba Avenue, Mr. Mboch, as we understand, the APRC is putting up 7 candidates for the upcoming election, 5 in the Constituency and 2 that is Bundukunda Constituency and those one constituency.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, for the 5 in the phone, it's so surprised that they took all 5 years in 2017.
Let's now listen to what is happening at the IEC office.
very well that is been here for very long. Remember, I was the mayor and I was APRC for 12 years and I got contested for 2 elections and I won it comfortably. So there'll be no problem again for my candidates to win in this municipality. We know where to pass, we know where to place our support, we know where our supports are also.
Do you think that the APRC winning the 7 constituencies will bring back the glorious days of APRC?
Of course, yes. Every journey starts with 1. The last election we got 5. We went for 5. We have 5 NAMs in the National Assembly. Now we are talking about 7. Maybe at the council time, we'll talk about more candidates. So it's the same. APRC believes in themselves all the time. Yes, please.
What regrets do you see, do you have about this assembly that has served on the that you want to Hello? Hello?
Well, that's the former mayor of KM, Yankuba Koli, there speaking to the press after the presentation of nomination papers to the IEC regional office in the KM by the APRC candidates in the names of, we understand, Suleiman Jame is contesting in the Bundukunda constituency. He is currently the councillor for Bundukunda ward, and Serif Sar. Serif Sar had also served as a councillor for Joswang around 2010 to 2013. And in the last parliamentary election, he contested on an independent ticket, but lost to Alagi Drame of UDP in the Joshua constituency. Even though there were controversies regarding his candidature, as people were claiming that he was being backed by the APRC, even though he stood as an independent candidate. But here we have in two these figures coming back to contest. For Suleiman Jame, we understand he is very popular as far as the people of Bunduka constituency is concerned. During his tenure as a councillor, he has bring about a lot of projects in that area, from the street light project. I know you've been following what he's been doing in that part of the KM. How important is this, having the APRC from 5 candidates in the last election and now 7?
Yes, well, one wonders where the confidence, but they must have done their homework for them to decide that they want to contest in all of these constituencies. Obviously, with constituency elections, local interests, local matters come into the fore. So you can really never tell who are, in many ways, who are the popular local figures, political figures. So it will be interesting to see here what happens. And then the contest, obviously, with the UDP, the incumbent, isn't it, Bakari Njai, for instance, in Bundung, is the current National Assembly member for Bundung, UDP, and Joshua as well.
And the interesting thing, in the last parliamentary election, we had the APRC put up a candidate in the same constituency, and UDP won. But like you said, Bakari Njai won by 4,210 votes against APRC, Modu Njai, who pulled 3,114 votes.
Absolutely, and just consider that in the context of what we just heard from Yankuba Kole, he's been winning there for a very long time and all the rest of it. But really what he is proving there, to my mind, is the power of incumbency.
Yeah.
That was really the key, and we've been talking about this for a very long time. That is why this is really another litmus test in many ways, just as the presidential was with Barrow personally in many ways. So here, it's a litmus test for really NPP and other parties. Really, the presidential elections, the candidate for the NPP routed, as it were, the floor with everybody else. So now, what can they rescue? How deep is the damage? This is the NPP, this National Assembly elections will show us that. How deep is the damage? I'm really very quite avid to say what happens on the 9th of April. How deep is the damage? How popular is NPP?
Exactly. And now Sirif Sar, like I said, he had served as a councillor for Joshua in the early 2010, 2011, and 12. And like I said, in the last election, he contested as an independent candidate, where he pulled 4,122 votes against Alagi Drame, who eventually won that election by 4,997 votes.
Absolutely. Yes, he lost in 2017, but the pieces have moved around a bit. So I'm not sure what I can take from 2017, how much I can use 2017 to predict as a weather vane to what's going to happen this time, because then UDP were in power, the most powerful really in the coalition in many ways, Barrow ex-UDP, so they were really in charge. There was that luster, but now that luster is gone. To many, the presidential election results, that's really kind of an embarrassment. It's a slight embarrassment for UDP, 200,000 difference, that's huge. So now how would that play out in the National Assembly? The last time, 2017, they had what, 31? They win 31, stuff like that. What would happen this time?
And now let's go to Fonyi, where we assume is APRC stronghold. In the last parliamentary election, they swept all the 5 constituencies in the Fonyi region. And this time we have seen they have maintained 4 of those 5 candidates, except for Fonyi Brevet, where we've seen Sunkar Baji is being replaced by one Ibu Kali, who we understand is a former teacher. He has also served as, he has also worked at the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education as a senior education officer. He has BA in mathematics and masters in education policy development in China. I spoke to him earlier before we came on air, and I was able to gather some of this information from him as he was on his way to Brickham for his nomination. What's your take? 4 retained and just 1.
Yeah, quite interesting. What's been going on there, one wonders, because in the end he was Sunkara Baji. He was the chair. The chair of the public petitions, as it were, select committee. And see, I said earlier that when it comes to constituency elections, you have so many local factors that bear on the issue. I mean, who would have thought that Sunkari, would be deselected this time? Really, who would have thought so? But now I'm also wondering, would he go independent? Or do they have such a structure and people are obedient to rules and protocols that if you are deselected, you wouldn't be so miffed as to decide to leave, something like that? Or would he go independent? So it will be interesting to see, and even to go behind the scenes and really just try to find out why he's been removed and somebody else will take over.
And we have seen the likes of Sankun Jami for Fonyi Jarol is maintained. We understand Sankun actually came to the parliament after the then MP then Bori Koli was expelled by Jami, and I mean he's now serving in his he served 2 times. He's now seeking re-election to serve another term. We have just seen Kadi Kamara, who was one of the 6 women in the National Assembly. She's also been, reselected by the APRC to contest for Fonyi Bandali. Musa Amul Nyasi, Fonyi Councillor, somebody who is very popular as far as Fonyi Councillor is concerned. Modu Kamara, Fonyi Bintang, is also retained. Looking at the way things have changed as far as Fonyi is concerned, do you think the APRC, I mean the legally registered APRC, because we know that there's another faction who are going to contest as independent candidates, will this in any way pose challenge to the APRC as far as Fonyi is concerned? Because there's a huge division in Fonyi.
It's bound to be. We all know that the APRC, Fonyi, is still in the stronghold. But we also realize what GDC, Mama Kande, scored in the presidential elections. I think he took 2 of the constituencies, wasn't it Fonyi Councillor?
Fonyi Councillor.
And another one. So maybe you have that element, as it were, that would perhaps not make you, APRC, have a clean sweep. They may need to share, they may have to share, as it were, the constituencies, the 5 constituencies, given that there appear to have been a huge number that voted for GDC. Would they go for a GDC candidate? One wonders. The GDC, they're yet to come. So we will see there whatever happens. And Barrow, NPP, how much can they penetrate? How far can they penetrate within the Fonyi region to upset that? And in fact, I was also thinking the other time, since NPP and APRC, they formed an alliance, perhaps they would have sort of fought, I thought, the National Assembly on sort of tactical basis, where you've got an APRC candidate, perhaps you wouldn't have an NPP, or where you have an NPP, you would have an APRC. So they're working together, but apparently not just as what happened with the previous, remember our first coalition, when it came to the National Assembly, they all just went their own ways, their separate ways.
And like you said, we have heard from the NPP's deputy spokesperson, Sidinja, is saying, according to reports, that they're going to contest in 40 constituencies. So meaning 13th, they wouldn't be contesting. So perhaps Fonyi is part of.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Possibly that is the key. So now we just have to wait in many ways until we've seen all the nominations in. Then we can have a clear picture of how things are.
Yes, viewers, you're still watching QTV, and we are broadcasting live from our studios here on Kairaba Avenue. It is day 1 of the nomination ahead of the 9th April parliamentary election in the country. I mean, we understand, I mean, today the ANRD party, Lamin Bojang, All People's Party, Dr. Jan, and APRC are scheduled to appear at the different IEC regional offices to submit, of course, to take the candidates who are aspiring to contest in the upcoming parliamentary election. But what we understand is that ANRD is not contesting. We will, before the end of this program, we will have Lamin Bojang, the leader of that party, on the program to tell us why his party is not putting up any candidate ahead of the next election. And of course, APRC, like you have had us discussed, I mean, they are putting up 7 candidates, 5 in the Fonyi and 1 in Bundukakunda constituency, Suleiman Jame and Those one, Sirif Sar. As you are seeing on your screens, or those are images from Brikama, where my colleague Mood Gajaga is there. He will be joining us on the program live to give us an update as to what has transpired in Brikama. And my colleague Yaya Jawo is also at the IEC regional office in KM, not far from where we are. From where we are. I mean, Mr. Mbuch, I mean, we know in the presidential election there was a NPP-led coalition. I mean, you talk about, I mean, many people will have thought, okay, maybe there will be a tactical alliance and all that, but it seems there's nothing sort of that. It seems like all the parties are now contesting on their own.
In many ways, let's be honest with
Do you think these are a tactic?
Not really, because this was really what happened with the 2016 coalition. By 2017 in the National Assembly, everybody did his or her own thing. So this is, let's be honest with ourselves, most of these parties that joined NPP, they were just latching on because they knew that because of the power of incumbency, the NPP was the new kid on the block, you know. So that's the train. So most of them just caught on to the train and moved on, because we've seen in elections past that they didn't have that pulling power. For me, that's what we need to judge. These are the objective criteria by which we judge these things. So we've seen in the parliamentary elections, we've seen in the councillor elections. So most of these parties really do not have any pulling power. So they held on to that. But NPP in many ways perhaps doesn't need them now. I think that is why they're willing to contest, you know, on their own in so many different constituencies, virtually all, the majority of constituencies certainly, so that you can have the majority in the National Assembly, and then maybe it will make the passage of your legislation, your agenda, the implementation of your agenda, as it were, easier, even though there are also dangers in having a National Assembly that is overwhelmingly NPP.
Earlier on, you talk about the importance of this election, how people are so attached as far as the parliamentary election is concerned. It's completely different from the presidential election. And because of that, we have seen so many independent candidates coming in. In terms of selection, what will you have advised any political party to, the steps to take to ensure that, you take the right candidate? I mean, sometimes we have these challenges in the past where you have a select committee of a particular party. They tend to select more the person they love and not the choice of the people. And because of that, I mean, sometimes even if you are the incumbent, you might be disappointed if you're not careful.
Well, you have to listen to the people. Any executive will probably get the whole membership, and if they have to vote on it, they decide who they want. I think that is absolutely key to winning, as it were. It gives you a chance of winning, and you need that popularity. So you must listen to people. I think that is the key. But you cannot have an executive, just deciding and then imposing, as it were, on the membership, the general membership, even though they wouldn't call it imposing. They would sort of say that, oh, it was all agreed, but you would realize that they had not really gone through the electoral process to make certain decisions. We hope that they will go to the people, then the people will decide for them who's going to stand.
And now let's look at the issue of women participation. This is something that we've always talked about. I mean, women representation in parliament. I mean, in this last fifth legislature, we had 6, and then only 3 were elected, and the other 3 were nominated by the president, and that included the speaker, Yakuma Jaite, and the Yasin Seka. The elected MPs were Kade Kamara, Tumanjai, and Fatmata Jawara of Talinding Constituency. Are you hoping to see more women?
Yeah, well, I hope that I'll see more women, but do I think that it will happen? No. It will be a repetition of what happened the last time. You see, if we just want to allow course for things, time, whatever, to take its course regarding this, I mean, gradually things tend to improve, then this is going to take an extremely long time. That was why they wanted to introduce legislation, so that we can give it a nudge, as it were, at least a nudge to move it forward. And they scuppered it in the National Assembly, really. So it tells you what we are for now. These ideas will really take hold gradually and piecemeal until we have that radical, maybe leader. We might have somebody like that. And then we might even be lucky that you can have a reasonably educated and worldly National Assembly. We do not know what's going to be this time. So it depends. But if you want to allow time, things to take their course without any helping encouragement in terms of the legislature and these other instruments and frameworks, then it's not going to happen. That's really what it is. We are really, in many ways, betraying. You hear the rhetoric all the time, gender equality, gender equality. There's never, you listen to radio or watch TV or read the news when you wouldn't hear this rhetoric of gender equality, there's gender equality, that, and all sorts of things. But you realize that the rhetoric quite doesn't match the reality.
Yeah, and if you look at the issue of women, many times they claim to be disadvantaged because of the gender, like you said. I mean, we have seen in Fonyi Bondali, for instance, where Kadi Kamara won in 2017. She put like 1,226 votes against Yero S. Jallo of GDC with 390 votes, and Usman Marcos of UDP with 828 votes.
It is certainly possible. If that is what you're talking about, the possibility that a woman can beat a man in an election, absolutely, we see it all the time. But the problem is you're not going to have a critical mass of women being put up by parties as candidates.
But why?
This is the key.
Why?
Oh, come on, this is like an historical accumulation, isn't it? For a long time, this is like
we have so many qualified women who are qualified to be in parliament. They are out there, people even living with disabilities who are qualified to be in parliament.
But let me tell you something as well. Not everybody is really interested or want to be in the hustle and bustle of politics, electoral politics. It doesn't work like that. So you may have lots of qualified women, but they would prefer perhaps to be professionals. They don't have to be in politics, even though we are forcing them to be whatever. But I have to be, well, the way I look at it, kind of a political animal. I must love politics. I must understand politics, if you know what I mean. I must have a vision. I must have a plan. That is the level that we are talking about. Perhaps given our society, how it is set up, the formation of our society, then it discourages, as it were, many women from coming into politics.
And now let's just look at the requirements for one to be able to contest in the parliamentary election as provided by the Independent Electoral Commission. First, it said the candidate must be a citizen of this country. I mean, a candidate has attained the age of 21 years old. I mean, a candidate is able to speak the English language with a degree of proficiency sufficient to enable the person to be able to participate in the proceedings in the National Assembly. I mean, among others, I mean, it has tax clearance, declaration of asset, and all those things. I mean, do you think these qualifications are on the low side, looking at the important role of Parliament?
That is true, but democracy should make it as wide open as possible. Do not bring too many stringent criteria which would discourage the huge swathes from coming in. Then you make it sort of a kind of elections for the privileged, that sort of thing. So yes, I'm all in for the low threshold. We get, as we spread the net as widely as possible to get people. The market will decide. People will either vote for you or they don't. The market will decide. For me, that's what I always say.
Interesting. Well, that's Mr. Mboch. Well, viewers, you are still watching QTV, and we are broadcasting live from our studio here on Kairaba Avenue, right behind the QSLMN building. I am Aliou Cisse, and we're discussing about the ongoing nomination. As we understand, the nomination starts today. I mean, with the APRC currently at the IEC regional offices in KM, and of course in Brikama, where APRC is planning to put up 7 candidates to contest in the upcoming parliamentary election. I mean, we know, I mean, it's quite important National Assembly. I mean, that's where so many things happens. Mr. Mboch, I mean, looking back at the 5th legislature, how will you rate them moving ahead?
People
often claim the parliament under Jammeh was a rubber stamp and all that. looking at the fifth legislature?
We are in a transitional
considering
phase.
the important role that the parliament plays.
I understand. But we are in a transitional phase. When you look at most of the candidates in 2017, those people, they really never had time to do their apprenticeship in democratic politics because of Jammeh's period. Yeah? They've only had a window where they could do democratic politics and learn and mature and grow. Unfortunately, they've had to do that within a parliament, isn't it? This is it. There is a learning phase for everybody. Go to any institution, anywhere, everything good practice, everything collapsed in many ways under Jammeh. So now we are beginning to relearn. So even though I used to be slightly censorious of them, but I think I am mistaken when I do that. I think I was mistaken when I did that. It wasn't a progressive National Assembly. We've seen what happened to the draft constitution and with the amendment, the constitutional amendment bill.
Exactly. It's quite interesting, but I understand Lamin Bojang, like I said earlier on, the leader of the Alliance for National Reorientation and Development is currently on the line. Mr. Bojang, welcome to the program. I mean, you were meant to appear at the regional, different regional IEC offices to put up your candidates. Are you contesting in this election?
Thank you very much, Mr. Sise. I'm grateful to be here with you. And also thank you very much for inviting us to this program. Alliance for National Reorientation and Development, ANRD. We are in alliance with NPP. And because we are in alliance with NPP, we are throwing our weight behind the candidates of NPP for this National Assembly election that is coming in April. However, we had initially identified a candidate from ANRD, but after consultation with the executive and the members of the NPP, we have decided to step down just to give way to the NPP candidate. Our understanding is that the area that we are in parliamentary constituency, this is our stronghold. But again, we were told that an appeal has been made for us to rally behind mainly those candidates, particularly those National Assembly members who defected from UDP to NPP at a time when things were very, very difficult. So as a result, in our constituency, one of them happened to be from here. So because of that constraint, because of that appeal, we have decided to step down and also throw our weight behind the NPP candidates.
Yes, you talk about the Parliamentary constituency, and you said you had identified a candidate who will have contested under your party, but you are now rallying behind the NPP. Is there any formal agreement whatsoever signed between you and the NPP?
What happened is that I'm sure you know that we are in alliance, and that alliance took place well before the presidential election. And yes, something has been documented, something was signed between us and NPP. Yes, but in this particular arrangement, there's nothing that has been signed, or there's nothing that we signed in respect to the arrangement that we've made. But what I also knew is that once we are in alliance, it is our take that anything that NPP is doing, we are doing it together. You know, and that is why we do not want to present a candidate, meanwhile NPP also present a candidate. I guess that is going to bring conflict. And that is why I don't think there is also a need for us to sign anything. Because even if it has been just for a gentleman agreement, the fact that it has been declared that we are in alliance with NPP, I guess that is sufficient enough for us to understand that if NPP should present a candidate, you know, even if we were not consulted, it is right, you know, for us to you know, give support to that particular candidate. So yes, between NPP and ANRD, there has been, you know, it has been officialized. The alliance has been officialized through a signing of a document, and this is just to establish that common ground where each will, you know, operate. So, but for this particular one, like regarding to your question, this particular National Assembly election, there has not been any, that kind of formal agreement. But yes, because once we knew that we are in alliance, and the NPP had presented a candidate, so we decided that we should step down just to give them the chance.
So where does this leave your party now?
Sorry?
Where does this leave your party now, ANRD?
No, ANRD did not eye only for even Sanemetan constituency. What happened is that, Mr. Sise, I think this is not the first time that such alliances have been, made. Even internally, there are a lot of, misunderstanding, a lot of issues. I toured the country. I went to the provinces and I have seen how the selection was carried out. And then, to be honest with you, it did not go well even with the ones that I have witnessed. The process was marred with a lot of key issues that definitely defeated the purpose. But because we know that a lot of people are interested to become National Assembly members in some areas, the selection process is definitely, has been questioned. But ANRD still remains to be a strong member of this alliance. We are still, in consultation with members of NPP, and we have been officially, we sat with the president, and then he has appealed to us to continue to give him the support. And that is exactly what we are doing.
You've made mention of something very interesting. You said you went around the country during the selection process, and you said some issues were observed. What are some of these issues?
Exactly. I have been consulted here. Before I even did it for ANRD, I did it for NPP, just to go around and see how the things were unfolding. I have been consulted here by some constituencies to be involved, to advise them with regards to the conflict that were, happening in those areas. Well, what I have found out during my visits in the provincial areas or the areas that I toured was that the popular candidates are there, but what happened during the selection process, these popular candidates felt that they were not fairly treated. And as a result, because they are also strong supporters of NPP, they decided that they are going to go on their own, like those as an independent candidate. So that definitely was not something that's supposed to happen. Should the selection processes had gone, smoothly. If it had gone smoothly, we would have avoided those kind of candidates going in as an independent candidate. And I have looked at the whole process of the selection. Honestly, it was a joke. It wasn't something that you would call it a serious selection process. We could have averted, the misunderstanding. We could have all, stayed in the same camp. Even those people who were not selected. If the selections were as transparent as we thought, we could have all, accepted the candidates that would emerge. But then what I saw definitely were not the best practices that I expected were going to be used. So
in this case, who should be blamed? Is it the national executive or the regional and district structures who were in charge of identifying who represent which district or constituencies, I say?
I think a lot of factors are in play here. What I have realized is that the local authorities, the regional authorities, they all have candidates. Some of them have their own candidates, and I have also learned that some executive members also have their own candidates. So there is a conflict of interest. I spoke with a lot of people on the ground. I visited a lot of people on the ground. I met people who are part of the processes. And maybe I would not like to disclose some of those things here, but honestly, the problem is on both sides, both at the regional level, because what we are expecting is that the next 5 years is going to bring in people who will have this country at heart, and definitely will also stand by their own local people or their people in their areas to make sure that they are well represented. And that representation also demands that when we are doing the selection, we vet properly and make sure that we give opportunities to people who are, qualified, or people who can, serve their people effectively in the National Assembly. Then, because of that conflict of interest, a lot of things have been compromised.
Thank you so much, Lamin Bojang, the leader of the Alliance for National Reorientation and Development. Thank you so much for speaking to us here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Mr. Moch, you have heard from Lamin Bojang issues, like we have hinted earlier on about the selection process. I mean, it is something that's quite interesting that you even have some people on the selection panel who have their own candidates that they prefer. How would this in any way affect a particular political party?
Oh, this particular party. For me, whilst he was talking, he said, Sani mentoring is their stronghold.
Yeah, that's Brofoot around.
Yeah, but I wonder, how does he know? Never been tested at all. So that is what he thinks. And the fact that APRC is in alliance with NPP, but they've decided to put up 7. So the alliance in itself, cannot debar you from, cannot bar you from putting up candidates. For me, when he said that they're going to put their weight behind the president, and I thought the question I've got here is, really, how weighty is your party? By all objective indications, we've got nothing to go by objectively. It is simply what the party apparatchiks, what he and others, just what they're saying. So one cannot judge either way. I haven't seen anything really to give me an indication of the significance, the weight of this party. I honestly haven't seen it.
And now, what's the way forward?
Oh, we just have to wait until we have our candidates all nominated.
He's gone around the country. He has witnessed some of the selection process, and he has, shared with us what he has observed. Not quite impressive.
Okay, fine, but essentially, he has allowed his party to be absorbed by NPP. That's exactly what happened here. It has been absorbed. They will not put up a single candidate. So that's it. What party? I don't know. It's just committed suicide, it seems.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mboch. Well, viewers, you're still watching QTV, and we are broadcasting live from our studios here on Keraba Avenue. I am Aliou Cisse here with Mr. Mboch. We're discussing the nomination for the upcoming parliamentary election, which has started today. I mean, earlier on this morning, ANRD, All People's Party, and APRC are scheduled to appear today, and then we have seen APRC was at the IEC regional office in KM and West Coast region. ANRD is not putting up a candidate. They said they are still going by their alliance with the National People's Party, so they are rallying behind the NPP. AP, or All People's Party, is also, I understand, putting up candidate, but we will try to speak to their leader, Dr. Jang, later on the program. But I understand my colleague, Modu Gajaga, is currently live from Brikama. Gajaga, where are you exactly in Brikama, and what can you tell us?
Thank you very much, Aliou. I am here at the IEC office, regional office in Brikama. Right now, that's where I am.
Give us a picture of what is happening where you are right now.
Well, Aliou, just as you get me through on the line, we've seen a sort of solidarity between all the APRC contestants in the different constituencies in Fonyi, all the 5 constituencies, which is Fonyi Berefed, Fonyi Kansala, Fonyi Bintang, Fonyi Jarol, and also Fonyi Bondale. So all 5 candidates of the APRC, that is the main APRC that has gone into coalition with the NPP, all 5 of them have submitted their nomination papers as we speak right now.
Were there any issue?
No issues at all as far as the process is concerned. Everything went on smoothly and in a peaceful atmosphere, and also it was done transparently. It was done in the open, and except a few things that is hard to do with the candidates themselves. Some of them didn't come with certain documents. They were asked to provide itineraries. Some of them their party photo, and others also need to have a logo as well. So all of those were requirements which some candidates fall short to submit to the IEC.
Sunkaru Baji, Fonyi Brevet is not coming up this time around. We have Ibu Koli. What can you tell us about Sunkaru and Ibu Koli's issue?
Yes, very interesting. Sunkari was interviewed by the press just immediately after Ibu Koli filed his nomination papers. Sunkari, according to him, he has been a part of the National Assembly since 2002, and he thinks it's time for him to give chance to other people, especially the people who he considered as the younger generation. And he thinks he is throwing his weight behind Ibu Koli because he thinks he is competent, he is a highly motivated youth, and he thinks when he comes to the National Assembly, he can make a lot of difference. That's the reason why he's stepping aside and giving Ibu Koli the opportunity to contest.
Anthony others, Musa Amul Nyasi, Kadi Kamara, Modu Kamara, Sankung Jame, what have they been saying?
Yes, Modu Kamara, when he was being interviewed, talks about continuing to reconcile the people of Fonyi. He said there have been a lot of political difference since 2016 after the election, which has seen the ushering in of Adama Barrow and also ending the Yaya Jammeh rule of 22 years. So he said there's been a lot of division, especially in his constituency. So he's thinking about that reconciliation mission is still not over. So I don't know if in 5 years you still find it difficult to reconcile people. So he said if he goes back to the National Assembly. He also talks about projects. I've started some projects that I want to complete. And he was quizzed on, what sort of projects is he talking about? Is it about National Assembly members going to bring street light projects or electricity for their people? Because that's not part of their job. That is basically the state needs to provide those services for the citizenry. Any citizen of this country should have those basic facilities because it's part of their fundamental rights. So he said, yes, some of those projects, not every time government will be able to provide it. So for them as National Assembly members, sometimes either they dig into their pocket or talk to partners, so they bring those kind of development projects. So he said when it comes to enacting laws at the National Assembly, he will contribute, he will support every bill that is for the good of the people. But he will also reject any bill that he thinks is not for the greater good of the people of the Gambia, especially, in particular, his constituents.
Musa Amul Nyasi, former lands minister under Jammeh, he had to serve as Alcalo of Buyam, and, he's also seeking re-election. Why does he think the people of Fonyi Council should re-elect him?
Yes, for him, he talks about connecting with the people of Fonyi Councillor, as far as their development and their aspiration is concerned. He has reflected on the health sector. He said he's been visiting the William Health Center where there are lots of things that are lacking in terms of medical facilities and also even personnel, doctors and nurses. He has really worked on all of those things. And when it comes to the foreign forces, he called them, that's the economic mission that is in the Gambia. Some of them are Senegalese who are stationed in Fonyi since 2017. To date, he said he's been advocating it even in the National Assembly, that those people should leave. They are not needed there because Fonyi is not a volatile region where you would need security forces to be there for at least for a 5-year period now, since 2017 to date. So he said that is also something that he would want to continue to work on, and also when it comes to their projects and other things. So he said for him, it has been development throughout, and he wants to continue those kind of developmental projects that he started in Fonyi Councillor, and he thinks when he is re-elected, he will do more.
Kadi Kamara, Fonyi Bandali.
Yes, Kadi Kamara, in fact, was the last candidate that has submitted nomination papers. After submitting our nomination papers, he also talks about that issue of reconciliation, because he said Fonyi is still divided, especially people of his constituency, Fonyi Bondali. He will do everything possible to reconcile them.
And knowing the fact that, like you said, Fonyi is divided politically. We have another faction that is putting up candidates in all these constituencies in Fonyi. Do these people really appear somehow worried that, hey, we might have some challenges in the upcoming election?
Yes, there might be challenges because you already have a splitter group. That's the APRC NATO Alliance group. In fact, I understand when I came, they were the ones who came in earlier with their candidates, but they stood as independent candidates. They're contesting under the name of being independent candidates. So that is there. They've talked about unity, some of the candidates who've been here or some who are vying for the National Assembly position. So they've talked about, coming together as one, uniting the people of Fonyi. But I think there could still be hitches and challenges because if you are fighting for the same position and you support different political parties and you have different ideologies, different agendas, I think there's bound to be a little bit of skirmishes here and there.
Thank you very much, Modu Gajaga, my colleague. They are giving us an update from the IEC regional office in Brikama, where 5 APRC candidates in the Fonyis where they are earlier on to present their nomination papers to the IEC regional office ahead of the upcoming election. Mr. Mboch, you have heard from Gajaga telling us all the 5 candidates for APRC have filed in their nomination papers and actually spoke to the press and talked on several issues regarding reconciliation in Fonyi, the issue of the economic presence in Fonyi, and other issues as far as projects in the region is concerned. Of course, the issue of Sunkara Baji, quite interesting. He said this is a guy who said, he has been in the parliament for a while and he now wants to give a chance to somebody. Something very rare.
Fantastic. Fantastic when I heard that, the voluntarily stepping down, to allow the younger generation, as we tend to call it, or the younger politicians to come up. Yes, good. Possibly he wants to do other stuff. So this was a healthy, nice story when you consider it in the context of usually the nasty stories we hear in politics. And the so-called APRC independence, of course, they cannot use APRC because officially that's the party. So they all become independents, which makes me wonder, I thought that faction had gone on to GDC. It's extraordinary. I'm really not sure what's going on here. Of course, we heard again the documentation. They've not been submitting all the required documents, the sort of stuff that we witnessed.
The same issue we had with the presidential election.
It will take us a while, I suppose, before we can do proper documentation. And yes, I don't think you'll get any major upset in the Fonyis. I think maybe APRC will edge it to 5. They may not get all 5. I'm saying that they could, but I think the APRC generally will just edge it in the Fonyis. I don't think there's much competition. It's curious to know what Mama Kande scored in the presidential, how it will play out in the parliamentary. That's it. It will be interesting to know about that. But generally, that area, I think, will be fairly predictable.
So you're predicting APRC will take Fonyi?
You just look at it. They've been doing so for God knows how long. If nothing else, when I look at the history, I mean, sometimes it's not always that history is a reliable guide to the future. But here, I haven't seen any demographic. I haven't seen any shift within the society there to show otherwise. You know what I mean? So that is it. It's just a prediction. It's not a fact.
Exactly. Yes, and according to the agenda provided by the Independent Electoral Commission, tomorrow, Sunday, 6th March, we're having CA, Citizens Alliance, Democratic Party, that is Kitabu's party, and the Gambia Alliance for National Unity, GANU, is scheduled to present their nomination papers. I mean, the good thing about this thing, like, if you are scheduled to appear on like today, APRC is required to be at all the regional office. For example, even if you have a candidate in Basse, the person should have been at the IEC regional office in Basse. So it is decentralized. I mean, it's not like, candidates have to come to the IEC head office. No. If you are in Lower River region or Upper River region, you go to the regional office. That's where you're going to submit your nomination papers. Like I said, tomorrow we're having CA, DP, Democratic Party, and GANU. On Monday, we have Gambia Action Party, GAP, GDC, Gambia Democratic Congress Party at 12 p.m. and Gambia for All Party, 3 p.m. And on 8 March, we have Gambia Moral Congress, my party, at 9 a.m. We have the GPDP and the Games at 12 p.m. and NCP, Majanko Samusa and party at 3 p.m. Looking at some of these parties, are you foreseeing them putting up candidates? Gambia for All, Gambia Action Party, GANU, DP?
Yes, I think what you're going to have, obviously, you're not going to contest in all the constituencies, but just as APRC has done, they've put up, what, 7 candidates?
7 candidates.
So you're going to have other parties maybe put up 5, 3, 10, I do not know. So you're going to have different parties putting up different numbers in constituencies they feel they have a chance, I think, they have a chance of winning. So that's what you're going to have really in the end.
Interesting. And who do you think the people should really go in for?
Oh,
it will be interesting to see the next legislature, knowing the fact that, okay, now the likes of Halifa Saleh wouldn't be there in the next legislature.
But this is
interesting to see the 6th legislature, how it will look like.
Oh, that's it. This is all part of the transitional stuff. Yeah. The old parties, the old movers and shakers, sort of seem to be seeding, seem to be giving ground to new actors on the stage. Halifa gone, perhaps in all likelihood, I'm not sure whether he will like me to say this, but in all likelihood, Zainu Dabo gone. So really, what are you going to have? You're going to have the new kids on the block. So, but for me, I'm curious to know how much of a damage to these parties had Barrow, NPP, done on them with the presidential. How would it show itself? How would it pan out in the National Assembly elections? So I'm curious about to see what's going to happen really. Because, for instance, when you imagine UDP won 31 seats, can they repeat the same feat? Some people, other people are not so sure about that. So this is also uncharted territory. Just as the presidential election was really uncharted territory in many ways because of the post-Jammeh situation. This is also uncharted territory. We are about to rearrange, if you like, the political pecking order.
Interesting. Well, for me, if you ask me, I mean, there are certain MPs that I would really love to see back in the parliament. Hadi Sidia Jata. I mean, it's somebody that all of us want to see back in the parliament. I mean, the likes of Ala Jimbo, Sana Jawara, Musa Amul Nyansi, these are people who are level-headed, really understand issues as far as the parliament is concerned. But hey, who am I? It's the people who decides, not me.
The people will decide. Maybe we can just, this is where we come in as well. Yeah. This is where we give them certain information. It is on the basis of that information we hope that, or at least that will influence, that will be part of the factors they take into account when they're deciding the information. Because we vote for candidates for any number of reasons. Yeah. Huh? Likability, charm, maybe we join the same ethnic group. Yeah, yeah. There are all sorts of reasons.
Some people call it, I was talking to somebody else the other time, and he was like, you think for me, I see National Assembly as a family election.
See, that sort of thing.
Exactly, because it's more about, okay, a particular committee has put up a candidate, okay, we should also put up a candidate. So sometimes, you know, that rivalry is there. People are so attached. I mean, they like to take ownership. Like, people want to see the MP is from our community or is from our tribe, and because of that, I mean...
This is the nature of democracy sometimes. It gives everybody your voice. But you see here, they keep on telling you democracy makes certain assumptions that I'm educated, and when I'm educated, you give me information, I will take the rational decision. These are just assumptions. Okay. Humans decide on any number of criteria. They decide for all sorts of reasons. So this is it. For me, I'm not too iffy. People are not educated. People are not this. People are not that. We will learn to grow up by doing it. That's how it works.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mboch. Well, viewers, I'm afraid with that we bring an end to this live broadcast, day 1 of the nomination ahead of the parliamentary election. Tomorrow, Sunday, we'll be back here exactly at 9 a.m. Like I said, I mean, the Citizens Alliance is presenting their nomination papers for the different candidates that they have put up. Of course, DP is also scheduled tomorrow, and the Gambia Alliance for National Unity. Like I said, I mean, we'll bring you all the details. Our regional correspondents will be across the different IEC regional offices to give us an update as to whatever is happening there. Do join us tomorrow morning. Until then, bye-bye.